Um, and I thought this was pretty interesting. Um, hold on, I'm gonna get my share screen going here. So Scott D'Amore actually was on Busted Open Radio, and he was there to talk about Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. He also talked about Kevin Sullivan, but of course they would have been remiss not to bring up the fact that he got shit canned by TNA. And so I'm going to play this little less than 2 minute clip here of Scott D'Amore on Busted Open, and then we'll discuss it afterwards. Here's Scott D'Amore and Dave LaGreca.
As much of a shock to you as it was for everybody else when they first heard the news.
It wasn't a total shock to me because I see all the moves behind the scenes, and we had our build up to it. And I think so. Here's your scoop for your headline. I found out that what was happening with me 2 days before Hard to Kill. So actually, before we flew to Vegas, before we did that amazing culmination of the rebrand of TNA, which is something I spearheaded from tip to tail, I found out 2 nights before when I was about to get on a plane. I found out that what was kind of in the cards. But I did what professionals do. I locked that in that place in my brain and kept it there. But I went there and I did my job. But yeah, it was gutting. But I went there. We put on those shows. I wanted to put that exclamation mark on the 7 years of what I did, which led to that promo. I went to that ring, going, this is my love letter, professional wrestling. And at that time saying, this might be it for me. Like I might walk out of Florida in another week and, just off into the sunset because I just didn't know. I'm very proud of the work we did there. And I know Len would always get mad when we or anybody would reference, Impact being a dead brand when we got there. And it wasn't a dead brand when we got there. Impact Wrestling was deader than dead. It was an insult to dead brands in 2017 to just call Impact dead. And that was something that I think is in some ways unprecedented. It's like Robert Evans and I talked about when in the history of wrestling has a company ever been that low and then came back from it?
Yeah, so that was Scott D'Amore on Busted Open, and he hold on, I'm gonna pull up my story that I did on it that I actually posted it late last night. The one that I posted is actually on the paid tier, but it was pretty interesting to hear him talk because he has essentially not said anything. He has not said anything since he left, and the first thing I want to get to is that he had found out 2 days before Hard to Kill that he was going to be let go. And that basically tracks with what everything, like some of the reports that had come out that, and he also, if you go back and listen to the full thing, you could tell that he wasn't surprised that he was going to get let go. That doesn't mean he wasn't disappointed and that he was hoping that he wouldn't get let go, but it had been coming for a little bit. They were going to be changing the organization. Well, he found out a couple days before Hard to Kill. And then he went and did 2 more, or I guess it would have been 4 more events knowing that he was leaving. And it was one of those things where he knew he was fired and other people knew he was fired. And he just kept coming to work like George Costanza. But that's kind of the joke. But I think it was more like he was just trying to finish up and then hand over the reins to the next folks. So, kudos to him for being a professional in that manner. Although he did reference the big speech that he gave after the TV taping, after Josh Alexander versus Will Ospreay. That was his love letter to professional wrestling. That was him. He had just gotten fired and he'd come out and he in that interview, he said he did not want to make everything all about himself. But when he did that promo, he made it about himself. He really did. And that was one of the things that the company just didn't like about him, is he was making things about himself. Now, he might disagree that he was doing that, but that was the perception of him. And that's one of the reasons why he's not there anymore. And it was, promos like that, right? It's, dating the talent. It's, booking the second biggest show of the year in your hometown and then putting yourself in one of the marquee matches and then winning. So it's stuff like that. That's why he was gone. That doesn't mean he's a bad guy. I don't think I've ever said that he was a bad guy. In fact, I was really disappointed when he got let go because I like Scott D'Amore. I really do. Like, I think that he's a genuine, like, and I've never met him. We've interacted on social media, and I think that I was on a press call that he was on before. I think everybody likes Scott D'Amore, but I think the change in direction that TNA wanted that they've had has been working. And so you got to then, like, okay, well, what was the problem before? Well, who was in charge? And what were their motives and what were their goals? And what is, like, now you see, like, who was in charge before? He was putting himself all over television. He had kind of cut the legs off from under Santino Marella as the director of authority. Now, I am not a fan of that character, to be honest with you. In fact, I think Scott D'Amore is better in that role than Santino Marella. But Scott D'Amore there was some episodes where he was on damn near every segment, and he's in charge. And you already had Santino on the show. So you had two authority figures, and then Scott D'Amore was taking up all the airtime when he didn't need to be. He was just there with his headset all the time. And so he really did make it about himself, even if he didn't mean to, even if that wasn't his goal. It ended up being that way. But also revealed in that he is, and Billy, thank you for reminding me that he's not under non-compete. Well, yeah, he can't be under non-compete because he's getting ready to do Maple Leaf Pro, but he's actually still being paid by Anthem. So because his contract was expiring in February 2025. So, but he also stated in that interview. Let me go to my story here. So he said, let's just go to the quote. He said, I found out what was happening with me 2 days before I had to kill, about to get on the plane. I found out what was in the cards. Asper and I had a chat about it, even though I had seen some signs. It still hit me pretty hard, but I did what professionals do. Yeah, he talked about that. So here's one thing that I wanted to get to. He said, any of the BS that I tried to buy the company, and that's what led to me leaving, was not the case. It boiled down to a difference of opinions on how things should be. There was no FU. No FU. I've spoken with Len Asper since then. Like I said to him the day that we talked about it, or it might have been the day the announcement went ahead. He said that I hope there's no hard feelings. I said I can't say there are no hard feelings, but there are no personal feelings. So he very clearly was upset, and he said as much, that he felt like they were heading in the right direction and he had the reins, and he got the reins pulled from under him. So he was very disappointed in that. But he's not taking it personally. And he said that he has still a good relationship with them, even though he disagrees with their decision. I think if you see where TNA is at right now, I don't think that you can go back on that decision and disagree with it, even though I think a lot of us did disagree with it when it happened. And in fact, all the talent did, because they all got together and wrote a letter on his behalf. And it's because, like, of what I said, like, people really like the guy. He's a good guy. So good, in fact, that even despite the fact that he was fired, I don't know if he's on a non-compete, but they're still paying him. So that makes me think that, like, there's got to be some limitations to what he can do. He's starting a new wrestling promotion, and he's using TNA talent on it. And I'll get to that in a sec. But he said he emphasized that there were no personal feelings involved in his departure, just a matter of a difference of opinions. He said that he was fired, and he said he was fired, and then he tried to buy the company because he wasn't ready to let it go. He's very proud of what they were able to accomplish. Additionally, he said that he wanted TNA to begin a working relationship with WWE for a long time. I need to update that in my story. I forgot to put WWE. And he's happy that they were able to make it happen. He's on good terms. A couple more news bits from that interview. He said that he knew he was being let go, and he still worked to get Jordan Grace into the Royal Rumble. So that was not his doing, but he was the point man on that. And he also said that where TNA and WWE are at right now has nothing to do with him, that it's the current regime. And so he was able to give them credit. And he said he's happy with the success that they're having, and that the WWE relationship is a part of that, and that's something he was wanting for a long time. And then and he is glad and he is happy that they're doing that. So let's get into what he's doing right now. So as to what he's up to now, D'Amore announced his next venture, the revival of Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, MLPW. So the original title was Maple Leaf Wrestling, but you can't go around calling yourself MLW when MLW already exists. So he's calling it Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, so MLP Wrestling. D'Amore, who served as TNA's president before his departure, will bring Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling back to life with 2 events this October at the St. Clair College in Windsor. So this is essentially, I don't know that Border City's going away, but this is essentially like kind of they're going to build off of Border City and just be a bigger version of Border City. I mean, he did say that in the interview. So at St. Clair College in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. The event's titled Forge in Excellence will air as pay-per-views on Triller TV. So yeah, so it's essentially going to be an independent on Triller, and will feature a mix of current wrestling stars and Canadian talent. The roster of these events includes names like Raj Desi, so Jinder Mahal, Josh Alexander, so TNA talent, Giselle Shaw, TNA talent, Kushida, TNA talent, Alex Zane, Kevin Knight. So bringing in Kevin Knight from New Japan. So and he did emphasize that he's still working with New Japan. Jake Something from TNA, Kylie Ray, and Trevor Lee. D'Amore expressed his excitement in a press release stating that for 6 decades, Maple Leaf Wrestling hosted a who's who of world's greatest wrestlers. Legends like Luthez, Bruno, San Martino, Ric Flair, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper all competed in Maple Leaf, and now we're bringing the legacy back with modern-day legends from WWE, New Japan, TNA, AEW, and beyond. Yeah, so Maple Leaf Wrestling originally operated from the 1930s to the 1980s as part of the revival. Footage from the promotions library will be uploaded to digital platforms like YouTube. So they already actually have some old Bret Hart stuff on YouTube. The revival marks a significant move for D'Amore, who has been planning this project for months, filing trademarks and assembling a roster that promises to deliver high quality wrestling. So I think some people thought that this would be like a full blown like touring brand and like all of that stuff. What it looks like is this is going to be, I don't know, I don't want to say replacing, but I'm thinking this is going to be Border City Wrestling Plus, essentially. So this is just kind of a newer version of Border City Wrestling. Looks like they're going to stick around in Windsor at the St. Clair College where Border City runs. And that doesn't mean that he won't go other places, but I think that's their focus, at least based off of that interview that he gave. And then they're just going to be doing pay-per-view events on Triller. Now, I did hear that he's looking for cable in Canada, and then also maybe even internationally. But right now, it's all going to be done on Triller. So this is essentially Wrestling Revolver, Prestige Wrestling, you know, kind of one of those deals, but his version of that. And then it'll be like his local territory. This is back to the territory days. And it looks like TNA is fine with sending their talent there, which I think is cool. Which that part right there tells me that there are no hard feelings, at least on the Anthem side. There are no hard feelings. Because they're letting, like, they could, because it's being televised or on pay-per-view, they could absolutely tell Josh and Giselle and Jake Something, who are under contract, that they can't go. They could, and they're not doing that. And I think that's cool. I think that's cool because what this is just an indie talent. I don't think this is Scott D'Amore trying to take a chunk out of TNA's marketplace or anything like that. I do think that this revival and then everything that went down with Scott D'Amore takes Windsor off the table for TNA. Unless somehow they get back in bed together and then Scott's willing to promote a local show for TNA. I don't think that, I just don't see that. I think that Windsor's probably off the table, which sucks because I always thought that Windsor was a good town for TNA. But yeah, I think this is cool. And I am excited. Let me just go to the Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling YouTube and I'm just curious because he said, he said something interesting that I didn't even know. And I'm pretty good with wrestling history, but he said that he's got footage of Bret Hart wrestling as Buddy Hart in Maple Leaf Wrestling when he was young, and he couldn't be called Buddy Hart because there was already a Bret Hart in the company, and that was actually Barry Horowitz. So that is fascinating to me. Hold on, let me Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Okay, let me see if they got a YouTube here. I don't see them having a YouTube channel just yet, but he said that they've already got it uploaded. So maybe they're going to go live on, maybe they're going to debut their YouTube soon. But he already said that that footage exists and that they have uploaded it. So maybe they're just waiting to go live with it. So we're not there yet, but looks like they have it. All right, let's get to the chat. Billy says that, oh, he already presented that one. So Lucha, as much as I love Scott, I will say this TNA is way better than Scott's. I do think that it's an improvement. Lucha, Josh Giselle and a couple other were advertised to be on the shows. Yeah, I just ran down the list. Billy says, let's see if Scott takes a high road on Asper after February 2025 and check stop. One thing I could say about D'Amore is he is a professional. He is. And I don't see what good it would do to try and bash TNA next year, especially if he's going to want to continue to use TNA talent on his shows. I think that he's going to play ball. I don't think he's going to come after them. Lucha said, if Scott is so at peace now, can some of the super diehards calm the hell down about being butthurt over his exit? I think they need to calm down just based off of how the show looks right now. So, and the full crowds that they're having and the production quality, except for Montreal, the production quality has been pretty damn good lately. Especially in this Tampa. I think Tampa looks great. I just hope he gets a streaming deal. Yeah, me too. Well, I think he does. I think it's just going to be one of those, it's a pay-per-view deal. I think he can just run monthly shows and put them on Triller and then do kind of what MLW was trying to do for a little bit, do something on Triller, and then if he can get something like it wouldn't, if they really are on good terms, it would not shock me if these Maple Leaf shows end up on Fight Network in Canada. That wouldn't shock me at all. Not at all. Billy says, I'm sure Scott is not happy that BFG is in Detroit a week after his big show across the bridge, and TNA leaks it to Sap a day before his announcement. That is weird. I don't know if that was deliberate. I don't think they're coming to Detroit to fuck with Scott, though. I think that this was just a location of opportunity for them. I don't think they have no reason to go and try to fuck with Scott and do a big show in Detroit to ruin a Windsor show. If they wanted to ruin Windsor, they wouldn't let Josh Alexander and Jake Something and Kushida go. Right? But the timing of the announcement is pretty weird, I would say. And then Io says, even Scott approves the WWE relationship. Yeah, well, I mean, he wanted it for a long time, and it finally happened. Just so happened it happened after he got fired.